Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host Tony Evans. I'm glad to say that we're back from the realms of punk to I would consider a modern classic underground album that's only just been released as of the broadcast of this episode. So as of I think we're going out the 3rd of June. This episode it came out a few days previously. King Witch's third album, Three. They're a Scottish band from Edinburgh that started in 2015. They have come from another band with a fantastic name of Firebrand Super Rock, which is, you might think and giggle in your hand, well, that sounds an interesting name, but actually, if you take a listen, and we'll talk about that in a little while. They're brilliant albums, the two of them. But this one here, King Witch's third, is just. I think it's the first of the albums I heard from them because I interviewed them for Metal Ruse a few months, maybe a month or so back. It's where I sort of came across them, and it's what makes this job that I do so brilliant is that you get these little snippets into stuff you probably would never have had the opportunity or even the hindsight to listen to. Now, what I will be doing is a little different this episode. Instead of an advert break, I hear you. There's not going to be one, and that's wonderful for you. It's going to be a track by my friends at Antagonizor, and it's going to be one of the songs, sorry, off of their latest album, Edgelords From Hell. I did interview them and also review the album. I will put the episode numbers of those in the show notes. But the song itself, Midnight Racer, is a brilliant take on a new wave of British heavy metal sounding track that's still very modern and underground, and you're going to love it. Anyway, that's at halftime. But we'll get back to King Witch. Now, I want to talk about King Witch for a couple of reasons, okay? Firstly, I want to get on my high horse. If I could do a sound effect of horse, I would. But I want to start talking about underground music. It's one of the reasons that I got into doing this podcast. It's one of the reasons that I like to do Metal Ruse and have my Facebook page is because there's plenty of lines written and words spoken about the big bands, and I still enjoy doing the Maidens and the Judas Priests and the Metallicas and the things of this world. But there's plenty of noise in that direction. The thing about the underground scene is, I was thinking about this the other day. I find it very much the same as it is with cinema. Now, there's a connection there because with cinema at the moment, when you go there and you go and buy your ticket, it is completely and utterly devoid. I'm talking about mainstream cinema of interesting and unusual movies. We are constantly bamboozled with fast moving dullard action movies or bromance movies, or there's nothing going out, or remakes or reimaginings or sequels. We're not going out there and like creating interesting art in the mainstream environment. We're raising kids whose concept of art is just another bland Pixar movie where everyone looks the same and the story is just the same, rehashed movie after movie. Another Disney movie that does exactly the same as that. Roll over, over and over and over. Just another way of selling merch, right? And when you think about when I grew up as a kid, now here's my high horse. I was an old man now. When I was a kid, even though you had your mainstream cinema, of course you did. That's always going to be there. It's always going to be your audience pleasers, your bum seat warmers. Those ones. You're always going to get the seat warming kind of movies, the popcorn movies. But at the same time, you could walk down to your local cinema. It may have 3 screens, and in that one day, you could have something as mainstream as Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade on, and then you could have an underground British horror movie like Extro on one screen, and I remember that vividly. And then, some of Disney's dark movies like Something Wicked This Way Comes on a double bill with Tron, which was exactly what that I went and saw that, and it was, it was dark. It was probably six or seven of us in the cinema. It, yes, it's about making money, but also there was risk takers, and I think this is what's happening with music in general. And I mean, even the metal scene, we've spent far too long sanitizing, cleaning, merchandising, um, and finding target audiences and having group discussions and letting money men take control of our musical tastes. Now, you can still avoid that and go underground and go elsewhere and find that stuff, but it's not as easily accessible as it used to be. And this is where I feel the underground is where it's at now, because you can go underground, as it were, like the Wombles of Wimbledon, and who can grab bands like King Witch and Antagonizor and all the kind of bands that I like to talk about and get some marvelous music where they're taking risks. And, for me, King Witch on this album, they are taking risks because it's a it's a beautifully made album. It is for the time one of the best produced albums I've heard in years. The textures and tones that seep around in it are just beautiful. You never know quite where you are from one number to the next. It's not predictable, and it comes from the course that, two really creative people, whilst also raising a family, are making this amazing music with Jamie Gilchrist on guitar and Laura Donnelly on vocals. Now, and of course, we also have you have Rory Lee on bass. The drums on this is actually a session drummer, but he also was with them in Super Rock, and same with Rory, and basically it's the same band, just renamed, if you like, but with different ideas. COVID came along and changed the way that they thought about music and what they wanted to make, and it's deeply personal lyrically, and it's also extremely uh, individual and new in its sound, because at one point it's doom. It has Candlemass and Witch Skull, which they told me they listened to a lot. Uh, it's got sort of same Vitus tones in it. On other tones, it's got Led Zeppelin, it's got Deep Purple, it's got Judas Priest, it's got Maiden, it's got everything in there. And then there's Black Sabbath, which is, all the way through it, particularly the Tony Martin era of Sabbath. I heard that. And even some, stuff like Wings, even, interestingly, in some of that, or in some of their tones. They're not copying by any means. It's just notes. It's like when you buy a really fine whiskey or a really fine wine. When you drink it, if you are appreciating the tones in the drink, they're not, those people making those drinks aren't copying other people's. They're just making their own tones that taste and smell similar. It's the same as this. All right. So they've had a bit music out before. So they've had in 2015 they had Shoulders of Giants, which is an EP. Then they had Under the Mountain in 2018, Body of Light in 2020, Worship the Riffs was an EP in 2021, but this is their third album, Henson 3, in 2025. It is something I didn't think I would hear again, to be honest. It's got swathes of prog. It's got dynamism and depth, but really Laura's voice, and after talking to her, she's such a lovely woman. They're such a nice couple in general, actually, but her voice is something, is a force of nature. It's an act of something you can't put your finger on. Don't know where it's coming from, Laura, if you're listening to this, but it is um, something just, uh, you know, nuts. I mean, I love female rock singers. You know that. It's one of my. I always gravitate to a female singer most of the times because they have more dynamism and range, and I really love the way they add power and don't hold back because the world is dominated by men. So it's quite amazing that they can show you what they can do. But this genuinely, the range that Laura has here, and especially even on the early Firebrand super rock albums. I may have said something else. I hope I said Firebrand Super Rock earlier. If I said it wrong, I apologize. It's Firebrand Super Rock. Yeah, even on those albums, there's this uh, sort of emphasis. You can hear it coming, but and of course on Under the Mountain and Body Light, brilliant albums. But this one really is where the line. I said to them in on recently, is where they draw the line in the sand. It is an underground masterpiece, really, truly, because it's an album that anyone can listen to. It's easily accessible. It's not so heavy that people who are like their heavy metal a little bit lighter are going to be offended. It's not too light that people who like heavy metal are going to say no, it's pop. It has intricate tones, light guitar work, thumping, juicy, fat riffs. It's got some brilliant bass work, some great drumming on it, very clear and clarity in the drumming, which I absolutely love. As you know, I love the clarity around the drum kit. I don't want a mushy drum kit. I like it to be clear. As a bass player, I'm listening for that. And it doesn't hang around too long. It's got some brilliant tracks. It ends with one of the best epic tracks of the last few years, and it's in my top 5 epic track list for this year, and I don't see it dropping out anytime soon. I couldn't give it a number yet because the year isn't over, and there's still a lot of music to listen to. But at the moment, it's in there, and it's just something that um that just blew me away when I heard it. I told him when I interviewed it that I thought this last track was the track of the album. It opens with a banging track and ends with an absolute classic. And I mean, it's 8 minutes long, the last track. Now, these days in music, 8 minutes isn't that long when we think about the average metal song now can be about 6 minutes. But 8 minutes, this isn't 8 minutes wasted. This is 8 minutes of texture, direction, storytelling, beautiful, epic vocals. It has soulful vocals. So it's just an amazing track that ends the album. I personally think there is some highlights throughout that, and we'll talk about that when we get there. I mean, we've got Suffering Life, Deal with the Devil, Swarming Flies, so Sea of Lies, Behind the Veil, Digging in the Dirt, Little Witch, Last Great Wilderness. And that is the last track, The Last Great Wilderness, which is the one that I think is their environmental message. We'll dig that in the second half when we talk about it, but I generally think that's I mean, they go through all sorts of lyrical concepts, suffering mentally, family, the world we live in, environment, and particularly environment because they live in Edinburgh in Scotland, and it's a beautiful part of the world, and around that part of the world, the environment is so beautiful, but it also can be fragile, and I think that's also what that's about. Anyway, and also having a new child, raising a new child, bringing a new child into the world, also will make you look at the world around you in such a vastly different way, and will also make you create your music in a different way and your art in a different way. And they do that with this. Anyway, this is enough for me on this side. I'm going to introduce now Antagonizor. So Antagonizor, as you may know or may not know, are a 3-piece from Florida in the US of A who write underground heavy metal that is addictive, um, angry, fun, just powerful, just like Sarah and Zoo way. They just write brilliant music. Sarah herself is a force of nature. So I hope that you listen to this song. If you haven't listened to my review or haven't listened to the interview, this song might make you want to go back, listen to those 2 episodes, and then hopefully go and listen to the album, which is available on all streaming platforms, wherever you get your music. And there's some brilliant live videos on YouTube as well. The dynamism in this band, in this little trio, is something that just makes me smile and has brought me through some very dark times. When my dad died towards the end of last year, when this album, earlier this year, when this album came out, I was still struggling quite badly. And this band, after talking to them for the first time, filled me with so much energy and so much love for life and love for music almost, that I cannot thank them enough. So please do sit back, listen to Midnight Racer from their amazing first album, Edgelords From Hell, out now on all streaming platforms and in small quantities of tape and hopefully vinyl soon. Anyway, do go ahead to their site and buy some merch, please. On the other side, King Witch's 3, track for track, dive into the brilliant third album by King Witch. Anyway, enjoy. Turn it to 11. It demands it. See you on the other side. Well then, guys, how fantastic was that? Again, one of my favorite tracks off the album, Edgelords From Hell by the amazing Antagonizor. But let's dive straight into the first track of the album, on the album 3 by King Witch, Suffer in Life. Now, I would like to offer you a lyrical dive into these tracks, but I can't. As yet, the lyrics haven't been released, and I don't have my hard copy. So I'm just sort of going with the flow and how I feel it and what it means by listening to the lyric as best I can. But Suffer in Life, the band themselves say, I'm going to quote them, it looks at mankind's incessant need and greed for money, power, natural resources, etc. It's also about the mental struggle to deal with it and carry on living in a positive life. I think that, again, it does come across that way in the lyric. It's quite a meaningful piece of writing, and I really enjoyed it as an opener. It's very atmospheric for the first track. It comes straight away the passion you expect that you hear from the band is straight out of the gates in Suffering Life. It really has a real vocal pull and push in it, which is sort of becomes part of this album's sort of motif. I feel it's sort of a steady um, returning theme that they bring throughout the album without it sounding repetitive. It also has, weirdly, I think it has overtones of Wings, Paul McCartney's Wings. I don't know why I'm getting that. I just get that. I think it's because I saw McCartney, was it last year? Yeah, late last year, or anyway, sometime recent, long ago. And they played a few of the Wings tracks, and I just thought, it had a little kind of like Live and Let Die bit to it to me. But that, again, is just my odd ear hearing those strange things. But it's a very well made song. The solo is mixed back in the track, I find, so that the pyrotechnics of the guitar are left just underneath, so the dynamics and the drums and the bass are not overtaken. I think the mixing on this album is superb. It's not a great, they're not great long tracks, by no means are they long tracks. 4 minutes 49 for around that sort of time, 4 minutes or 5 minutes per track. Suffering Life is 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So they're in around there. There are some longer numbers, but they don't hang around. But it's one of those albums, like I've sort of said before, that it whizzes by so quickly. And people may think that's a negative, but I don't think it is. I think most bands will agree with me. That's a positive because it means that you've enjoyed it so much, it's sort of over quickly. Like it's like when you're enjoying something, it's always over while you're enjoying it. And it's nice to go back and then reaffirm yourself with it. It's got. I mean, here the drums are just how I like them, quite clattery, quite driving, and there is a bleakness to the lyric, and there is a soulfulness um, to Laura's vocals, and it really has a real 80s Sabbath sound to me. It's the Tony Martin era Sabbath that I love so much. It has that feel mixed with some Led Zeppelin and some, you know, Deep Purple. It's just a crazy mix of all influences, yet so original and so perfectly great for the opener for me. And then of course we move swiftly into Deal with the Devil, slightly longer track. Again 5 minutes 50. It doesn't feel that way, but I find here that Jamie really gets his teeth into one of his big fat riffs here, driving really groovy. I mean, they describe Suffering Lies as groovy. I'd say this is groovy as well. It's got a real swagger to it, and I love the cymbal work in it. And as you may know, listeners or new listeners to this show, I really love the way that cymbals are recorded because they cut through, like they just cut through like an acid. They just cut through that thickness of bass and riffs and just all the mess you can get in extreme heavy music and heavy rock. There's cut through it. It's really, really nice, and it has a sort of edginess again. Very nice, clean, um, almost cleans the palette, ready for other things. The solo in here is so crisp. It is like a Steve Vai solo. The Jamie is so gifted. It's crazy. He can turn his head to the most juiciest, fat and relentless riffing, but then he can also play this sort of surreal, clean 80s, overproduced almost guitar sound, and that's not a negative. That's actually something that I love because again, it cuts through. But Laura's brooding vocals in here, dark, and it reminds me a lot of the Headless Cross tour. When I saw Sabbath on that tour, it has that feel in it. It's almost as well a grungy kind of track. I get hints of Butthole Surfers, Soundgarden, all those kind of uh, late sort of the grungy, the big grunge bands. It reminds me of that. Has a grungy feel, a heavy grungy feel though, and also a little bit on the solos. I have a feel that sounds also a little bit like Devin Townsend, and I love Devin Townsend soloing. So it's got everything. It's got depth. It's got darkness. I mean, it's got deal with the devil. Where the lyric itself, I feel, is dealing with fighting with your own demons. It's not as simple as just dealing with the devil. I don't think it's certainly not comic book or mysticism or dragons and sorcerers. I think it's generally fighting the darkness within you. And at the time when this was written, I know this is written in and around COVID. There was a lot of things going on, and I think that has that sort of sense to it. It's one of my favorites on the album, and it's a brilliant track to follow such a sort of wonderful and energetic and atmospheric opening number in the first number in Suffer in Life. And then we get to one of my favorites. I think I've got two real favorites on the album, although this does change day to day. But Swarming Flies, I've just written in big red letters, attack, attack, attack. This has Candlemass vocals, a groovy doom in a way that I think only they can make. It's the grooviest doom I've ever heard. And it feels to me like they're doing something completely different. The riffs are stabbing, they're dark, they've got a bleakness to them. But Laura's vocals and lyrics swell with the piece of music in a mesmerizing kind of doomy, groovy way. It's driving. It has a wonderful bass line, one of my favorite bass lines on the album. And the drums again are mixed back and they're softened. And I like that because it doesn't detract from the warm, rounded sounds that they're making with their guitars, with their bass, and particularly with Laura's mesmeric voice. It's a force of nature. Her voice, absolutely uh, wonderful. It's a very rounded sound. The only angularity in this whole track is the solo, and that seems to be often the way of this album. There's these real soft tones in a heavy kind of way, in a heavy rocky soft way, but then suddenly there's this sort of stark modern, almost I said Steve Vai, Gary Moore, Townsend, those kind of blues driven riffs that are really bluesy but with a real modern twist. I think that modern metal and modern rock misses and is missing a lot of blues. I have mentioned that on my episode, Where Has the Blues Gone, way back, and I feel that that's another issue. But I think this album has the blues in it to give you that swagger. And then we move to Sea of Lies. I love this one. It's an epic. Almost made it for me to be almost made it is the best epic on the album outside of the last track, which we'll talk about. But it tags very, very closely onto there. This is a band, a number by a band that knows what they're doing, knows their full range, knows that they've got swing, they've got heaviness, they've got sadness, and they've got pointed bleakness, and probably the most classically doom on the album. Laura hits notes that make take your breath away here on this. The textures are so intriguing, and Laura's vocal is truly beautiful that it changes direction in so often a way, in such a proggy way, that at the midpoint it's something you get to the midpoint, you think, I think I know this number, and then suddenly it just changes. And honestly, I've put chef's kiss here. Jamie's use of the wah is something that you don't get a lot of in really good doom these days, and you do, but it's sometimes overused, or it's so heavily um played and distorted, and this just has this classic 70s Led Zeppelin wah in it, and I feel that it feels the most proggy on the album for that fact. That really dirty, grimy, sort of Gibson-esque drawl that you get, and it does go with Laura's brilliant vocal lines on this particular number. And then we get Behind the Veil. Now, this really is proggy. It's more technically driven piece on the album. The bass is by far and away, and the drums the hero, I think, underlining Laura's voice, but it's pinned down before it gets too out of control by stabbing solos that Jamie throws in with these sort of amazing harmonics that sort of just almost sort of again, they're like clean the palette. They cleanse the tone through into the next part of the song. They make this band makes such a sound that I have not heard a sound like this from a band in quite a while of this genre or ilk. I mean, it's very difficult to put them in a genre, to be honest with you, but it's truly a wondrous piece of music. Jamie's guitaring here, and his composition and his technique. I don't know how he's been overlooked so long. What a guitarist! I reckon he's probably one of the best on the scene at the moment. You know, he's understated yet he's boisterous. He's aggressive yet he's soft. He has all the tones and techniques that you want from here. He's got obscene riffs. He's got, you know, soft nuances, and that itself plays in with Laura's vocal, because Laura's vocals also, they have this brilliant ability to soar and then to drawl and then to entice and to harmonize and to um, bewitch, but also at the same time they had that kind of real dirty rock and roll sound that we all love really deep down in our hearts, you know. And that's Behind the Veil, and that's again one of my faves. And then Digging in the Dirt comes next. This is the 70s influenced track on the album, I think. This has heavy rock in all of its wonderful glories and all of its swagger, its fast energy, its freneticism. It's possibly the fastest track on the album, I'd say. It is a crunchy modern metal riff, but it doesn't overstate the wonderful blues-driven 70s rock riffs that you get. This reminds me of bands like, Badfinger and I said Zeppelin and Free. It has all those sort of brilliant heavy rock scenes from the great era of heavy rock bands. I mean, I even hear some Scottish influences in here. I even hear a bit of Sweet and things like that. So there's lots of things to hear on here. It's furious. The solo itself is wicked. It sounds like a Tony Iommi wrote it. You know, it's so such a poignant solo for the lyric. Again, this song is digging in the dirt. I mean, it's I think it's about. I mean, again, it's a tricky one lyrically to hold down. I'd say for me, it's about scrabbling to keep working, to keep hard. It's also about, you know, you probably those ex-boyfriends and girlfriends or partners where you just want to, but you know, you've been hurt in love, so you're going to dig up some dirt and throw it at them. You know, it has that kind of sadness in the lyric to it. And again, when I get the lyrics for this, I will do another one probably to do a lyrical dive. Just so you know, um, it does sound like it has they're having loads of fun recording this. I had loads of fun listening to it. The chorus is dramatic, and it's epic, and it's sing along. There's very few albums where you could sing along to most of these tracks. I've never talked about that before, but I think this is a real sing along album. All right, and again, Digging in the Dirt, not a great long song, 4 something minutes, not a hugely long track, but still something that you sort of can't really put your finger on how wonderful it is. It's really hard to put it into words, but I just say it's. Whoop, I hit the mic with my book. It's an amazing feat. But we come to now to one of my an album, a track on the album I wasn't expecting, but it was a bit of relief for me because it's all been fast, thick, heavy, and moving. We get Little Witch, which is quite stunning. You know, it's classical guitar here. There's a little. It's a piece of um. How do I? It's Laura really points out her vocal line here in such a way with her range. It's something that when you hear her hit the soaring notes that you do in the other tracks, suddenly now she's got this lovely mid-range yet still epic, but softer. It's mesmerizing and amazing. she they really showcase, well, she showcases her different abilities within her vocal range, her diversity, and truly a beautiful guitar piece. Very folky. I mean, maybe that belies again the being from Scotland, where there's a lot of folk influences in their music. There is a real sense of folk, and it goes well with the title Little Witch, and it goes well with the concept of again that lyrically, I'd say that it's, what can you say? I think it's again a story of a girl coming of age. Again, I could be wrong, and as to the band might still reach out and tell me I'm wrong, and I don't know. Again, I haven't got the lyrics yet, and but well, most of the time is I will sit through and listen to the music 5, 6, 7 times, and then I will do a lyrical dive. Couldn't I couldn't get the lyrics to written down to do that. So this is just a quick run over what I think the lyric is about. Again, it's still very beautiful. It might be a coming of age song. It might be a traditional, song of white magic. I don't think it's black magic as such, but it is. It's lovely, and what it does is it 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 moves very very succinctly into the very last track, which is The Last Great Wilderness, which for me is one of the best epic tracks I have heard in a very long time. And sonically, because it's a lighter song, Little Witch, it's softer, it's shorter, it sort of drifts in a sort of miasma at the end into this beautiful, epic, uh, almost sort of a surreal opening to The Last Great Wilderness. And the song I know because I was talking to the band about it, because it's actually one of my favorite songs of the album. I had to ask. It's about um, it is about the wilderness around them, and the beauty of which they live, and how it is a last place on earth. They will, you can't really go anywhere else outside. Once you go away from the city, go into that wilderness, and this is in most countries in the world. You get to live, you get to witness the beauty of the real world, and it's an 8-minute epic. Okay, it's got this goosebumpy opening, which really sort of builds with texture. It builds with energy. It's just so doomy when it gets there that it crashes with a mighty riff from that soft opening, as if you've sort of crashed through the forest into a clearing, and then you are built with atmosphere that perfectly underlines this epic album. The twists and turns, the drama, the stunning vocals, the brilliant guitar parts, the drums and bass here echo just. Actually, I wrote this down, and I'm sure this is how I felt it. It sounds like there's parts in it in this particular song that sounds like they're trying to mimic the sound of a clock ticking, like the doomsday clock, the drums and the bass, almost church-like bells ticking of a clock. It's slowly ticking away. It's really, it builds to this sort of violent creative crescendo. You try and say that quickly. Violent creative crescendo to a mix of clean and distorted guitars in a texture that I just makes me want to keep listening to it. I don't think I could listen. I've listened to it 7, maybe 8 times, and I don't think I've got my head around all of the ins and outs of this great piece of music. It does have a real Zeppelin feel throughout, that real sort of 70s pomposity that we all love, that progginess, that we, myself very much included, um, yearn for sometimes in our epic tracks. The solo is very apt, and the way it sort of ends the track is fills those spaces that Laura's vocals leave behind. So where there's a space where Laura isn't there, there is a fantastic riff or a bass part or a drum piece. So wherever you do when you listen to this song, there's always somewhere to look in one direction or another. If you understand, even though it's a musical piece, you can understand what I'm saying. You can almost imagine you're looking at a wide, visceral landscape, and you're looking every time and finding different things that the artist has portrayed in that. But I really love that doomy clock motif, whether it's true or not, whether it was meant or not. I think it's something that will stick with me every time I listen to it. So much like the clanging of the end of time almost, and the loneliness, the noise of the emptiness of the forest when you make that noise and it just echoes off the trees and you are the only one there, apart from the beautiful wind in the trees and the rustle of the creatures in the undergrowth. It's a real cold yet beautifully warm and nurturing number. And I think for me, the Last Great Wilderness is an 8-minute piece of music that is worth the album's purchase or download alone. I hope that you do get to listen to this album. It's on all streaming platforms. It was a real joy. I really, really enjoyed listening to this album. I'm going to keep enjoying listening to this album. I really enjoyed taking some quick dive into the musical motifs and some of the basic ideas. As I said, normally I like to do a much deeper lyrical dive, but I haven't got my full copy yet. When it comes in, I'm going to do a separate short lyrical dive for the album, so you can also see where Laura and Jamie and Rory are coming from in their direction mentally, because I think that will also help you enjoy such an epic album. But that's it all for me this week. I really, really am stoked I could do this, and I really love the fact that you still listen. If you've got this far, fantastic. Look, please do like and subscribe. Flick up if you're on Spotify. Give me a rating. Share it with your friends. Listen to the album. Contact with me on my Facebook page and tell me what you thought. Message me. Tell me what you thought. I'd love to know. You can also come and listen. You can also, for $2 a month, you get ad-free episodes on Patreon. That's patreon.com/heavy metal tones. That's patreon.com/heavy metal tones. And at the moment, I'm trying to put extra stuff on. It's just finding time. So I'm putting on videos from Metal Ruse that are on a bit early before they get released or just after the release. And also some unedited videos that I put up that are sort of raw material for those interviews, because a lot of that stuff before and after some interesting chats we have. Anyway, that's enough for me. Keep safe. Look after yourself. And I really do thank you all for listening. This is probably the most wonderful thing I've ever done creatively in my life. It's something that has kept me vital and live now. This is my 4th year coming in August. I can't believe that I'm almost at 240 episodes. It just blows my mind. And I can't believe that I still have repeat listeners. I can't believe anyone's listened, to be honestly truthful, to this old man, blathering on for almost an hour each week. But I'll keep doing it, because if there's only one of you, there's only one of you. I don't care. I still love doing it. Anyway, thanks for listening. Chat to you next week. Keep safe, keep rocking, and go King Witch and Antagonizor. Do listen to the album as well. Information's in the show notes below. Bye for now.
PowerPoint doesn't help on the battlefield. At GDIT, we build IT systems that can't fail. At the edge, for intelligence, and places we can't name. Applying AI to defend against aerial attacks. Predicting threats to U.S. troops on the ground. and securing our nation's intelligence with cyber. Because the mission doesn't care about theories, it needs technology that works. Learn how GDIT delivers mission-ready technology at gdit.com.